Okay, so John's having a little problem, so I will introduce myself. I am Jody. I am with Exeter International. And I think I'll just go ahead and start with sharing my presentation with you. We'll start there. And then John can kind of do a post introduction when he comes back online. So I'm just going to share my screen. And then that way everyone can see the presentation and we can all, so hopefully everyone can see the presentation now. And all right, so we're with Exeter International, and today we're going to be doing some destination training on Iceland. And it's one of our newest destinations. We are launching it. So I just wanted to thank you all for coming. And this is me. I'm Jody Ricottone. I'll be leading you through it. I'm one of the two experts for Iceland here at Exeter International. And so we'll kind of just jump in with our Iceland 101. We have about 30 minutes and then we'll do some like Q&A. So I'll attempt to kind of go over the highlights and hopefully give you a really good flavor for the country and what you can expect for trips for your clients, and just what kind of experiences and places to stay we really love and recommend. So kind of a brief rundown of what we're going to do is like who we are and how to get there, when to go, the challenges of going there, just different travel styles that do really well here, popular routes and how long you would need, where you're probably going to be booking trips to for clients, and then kind of what you might want to combine it with. So I think starting with the map is always really helpful. If you've already booked Iceland before, I'm probably not showing you anything new, but just kind of quick factoids about it. So Iceland sits kind of at the juncture of the North Atlantic and the Arctic Oceans. So it's a Nordic nation and it's situated between Greenland and Norway. It's not part of the EU, but it is a Schengen nation. Its currency is the Icelandic krona, and it has about 372,000 people, and about a third of those live in the capital of Reykjavik. So it's not a very populated country, and the population is centered there in Reykjavik. And so for kind of context size-wise, it's about the same as the state of Kentucky. So this is kind of a little look at who we are. There's myself and Lee and our founder, Greg, and we've all done very recent trips to Iceland. So we have it really fresh in our minds. And Iceland is really a great destination for everyone. As you can see from these pictures, it will appeal especially to those who like a more scenic or outdoor adventure travel experience. But it is good for all kinds of people because it's not super museum heavy. It's great for families, friends, multi-generational. So we'll kind of go through it and where you might need to be careful about the traveler, but for the most part, anyone can travel here.
Hey, Jody, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, keep going. Sorry. Got it.
No worries. So I think kind of a great place to start with Iceland is how to get there, because it's a little different than a lot of its European counterparts. So the big one is going to be Icelandair. That's going to be your biggest chance of getting there. They have the most direct flight from the US and Canada to Iceland. All those international flights are going to fly into Reykjavik. So there are other carriers that do also have direct flights. That's Delta, United, and Air Canada, but those are fewer and farther between and also tend to be a little more seasonal than the Icelandair flights. If you have clients who are not big on Icelandair, you can do it as a combination with another destination. That would work for like Copenhagen, Stockholm, and Oslo, who all have direct flights from the US to those cities and then from those cities to Reykjavik. So kind of combining it with another Scandinavian or Nordic destination. Other European connections that could work out that we work with are like Zurich, Amsterdam, Berlin, Munich, Vienna. There are some others that we don't work with, like London and Paris, that you could also do. So just kind of options, but Icelandair is how we're seeing most people get there. And then those flights from the East Coast are about 5 to 6 hours, and from the West Coast, about 8 hours. So that's kind of what you can think of for flight time. When to go? Iceland's a little different because I would argue that they have more than 4 seasons, and those seasons are more based on interest than the actual temperatures in the air. So you kind of have the midnight sun in summer months. So that's going to be late May to early August. This is when you're going to have really long daylight periods where the sun might still be out during midnight. So you might never get kind of that dusk time frame. You have the aurora sky time, so that's gonna be like late September to late March when you would be able to see the aurora borealis. So that's going to be the other like kind of like big ticket item that people go for. Snow season's more like December to March for kind of those like heavy snows. You want to do snow-based activities. That's going to be December to March. And then I have what I like to call the everything in between. So like the lupine season, which are the flowers that bloom there. So that's kind of late June to early August, where you'll see just the countryside carpeted with these beautiful flowers. Puffin season, May to August, and whale season, April to September. So I find that when you talk about Iceland, people kind of have normally one of these things as a driving factor for their trip. And so those are kind of the seasonalities for those specific tastes, if you will. So I'm going to squeeze challenges in here, so like sandwich the bad between all the good. So the challenges that we're typically going to see are first and foremost going to be price points. So that is just blatantly, Iceland is an expensive destination. Everything from hotels to parking to food comes at a premium. And one of the main reasons for that is that it is a small island where tourists vastly outnumber the locals. And that means that everything more or less is being imported across an ocean. So all of that just adds to being an expensive destination. So expectation setting is the other big one, and that's where we always have to work with you as the advisors to make sure that clients really know what they're going to be getting. And that's where, you know, those seasons that I talked about that are kind of driving factors based on something that someone really wants. They really want to see the aurora borealis. They really want to see whales. It's just saying that we'll plan the best trip that we can. But unfortunately, I have not found a way to control weather or whales, much to my own disappointment. So I can't promise that those will happen, but we'll always plan a trip that will be honest about what the likelihood is based on seasonality. The next one I want to talk about is logistics, because this is where it can be just a little bit difficult. Hotels are smaller and can book up. And so adding to that is just kind of the mapping for the country. So I just kind of did this as a quick look so you can kind of see. So this is a pretty popular routing that we have here. So kind of going from Reykjavik through the Golden Circle and then down the South Coast. So when you talk about routing, you're kind of, especially if you're doing the South Coast area, always going to end up backtracking because all roads are going to lead back to Reykjavik. So that's just something to keep in mind for timing, where you have to really keep in mind that you're kind of driving down and then always coming back up the same way, unless clients are doing the full circle, in which case they're looking at a very long trip. And I'll be honest, most clients aren't looking to do that. So that's kind of a very common routing that you're looking at there. So the other one is, again, going back to that seasonality, but because there are multiple seasons, low season here isn't as easy to define. There's definitively a high season, but most of the rest of the year is going to act more like a shoulder season. So you're still likely to have sold out hotels in October, December, and March. When I was there in October, we had a lot of hotels where we snatched up the last room, or where we were there and they were talking about being fully booked up, you know, for the full week. So it is common, even in what we might think of as low season, for hotels still to be booked up because so many of them are small. So let's move on to happier things like travel styles and traveling in style. So I just want to kind of touch on the most popular ways that people travel through here. And so the first is going to be full service with a driver. So these are going to be clients who really want top-notch luxury experience. They don't want to have to think about it. They want to get in and go. This is going to be the way for them to go. This is pricey in Iceland because, as I mentioned, this is an expensive destination. So it's not going to be in everyone's budget, but for people who have it in the budget, this is a really great way to do it relaxing and kind of carefree. And that's also helpful when you talk about people who don't want to do self-drive, which will be our next option. So full service with a driver here is going to start around $1,400 per person per day for 2 guests double occupancy. So just to kind of give you a rough look at what pricing is going to be here. The other option that I think is probably one of the most popular options is going to be self-drive. So this is great as a value option. It's great for more independent clients who maybe want a little more leeway in their itinerary, a little less structure. This is a great option, or those who just don't have it in the budget to pay for the full service. We still give clients a lot of support during their trips. So, we'll help with booking cars, and most of the cars here come with internal GPSs. You can also opt to use your cell phone if you have an international plan, like I have T-Mobile. So when I win, I still just navigate it using Google Maps because I can pre-save that all onto my Google Maps and click and go, which I love. And the driving here is really easy. The main thoroughfares are very well maintained. There are going to be some back roads that might be a bit bumpier, but all of the main thoroughfares for the most common drives are going to be pretty well maintained. Parking is really easy. Iceland knows that self-drive is a thing that clients are doing. So it makes it easy. Signage is great. So this is a great self-drive destination. So here, I do like to note, we as a general rule don't require hotels as a part of our booking. But when we do self-drive, we do require that Exeter books the hotels as a part of that program. And self-drives here are going to start at around $750 per person per day. Again, 2 guests double occupancy. So that's kind of, again, the price point we're looking at here. And then another thing that we'll see is kind of more of a Reykjavik-based program with day trips. And this is going to be similar to a full service program in the sense that you're just going to be doing day trips from there, booked with like a driver or guide, or booked onto a group tour perhaps. So this is kind of like more, you could do more local day trips. So like whale watching or kayaking, go do the Into the Volcano experience. But you can also do full day ones like the Golden Circle or the South Coast. And this works really well for people who have shorter trips and don't want to change hotels a bunch. And also people who want to maybe enjoy the nightlife of Reykjavik, because Reykjavik's really the only place that you're going to find nightlife in Iceland. And pricing here is really hard to tell because it's going to 1000% just depend on what kind of touring they opt to do, whether it's more local or far-flung day trips. And so I just, again, to point out, like, this is a great destination for the active traveler. So hiking, kayaking, off-roading, ATVing, like name it, you've got it here. But it's also nice because those activities come in varying levels of difficulty. So if you're super fit, like Greg and Tommy here, you might join in some of those more challenging expedition feeling trips. If you're like myself and you are gym light, you can enjoy the Jitzler options that are still fun and exciting. So there's an option there for everyone to still enjoy the activities based on your own fitness levels. So next I want to touch on just kind of the popular routes that we're going to see and how long you need to do them. So Reykjavik is going to be, again, you can do this as like a basing yourself, but almost everyone is going to include Reykjavik as a part of their trip just because it is where you're going to be flying in and out of. So again, it's capital city, it's the only big city in the country. So one thing to keep in mind, if you love nightlife, it is a great option. If you do not like nightlife, I would avoid this on the weekends. There is no hotel that can promise you a quiet Friday or Saturday evening. It is a lively and wonderful atmosphere, but it does get a bit loud. So definitely if you have, I need, the quiet, the peace, not Friday and Saturday in Reykjavik. So hotels that we love here. So the only Virtuoso property in the whole country is here, and that's the Edition. And it's got a great rooftop bar. It's got great water views. It's definitely kind of for in the city center going to be the luxury option. If you have people with like a gentler price point or they just don't want the addition, we love the Canopy, which is a Hilton property. It's got reasonable rates. It has a really good sense of place, which I know is not always true for Hiltons, but they've really incorporated a lot of local history and art into the hotel, so it has that sense of place and decent sized rooms. And then while the other two aren't in the city center, I've still placed them here because I feel like people still view them as Reykjavik hotels. So that's going to be the Retreat and the Silica, which are both at the Blue Lagoon. So the Retreat's going to be your ultra luxury 5-star choice, and then Silica is going to be your 4-star hotel. They're both on the Blue Lagoon. They both have their own private lagoon access. So this is great for people who are looking for that like spa experience, which I know a lot of people think of when they're thinking of Iceland. So highlights from Reykjavik are going to include, I think the highlight for me is the food tour. I think it's one of the top tours to do for in the city center. You get kind of a walkthrough of the city, you get good history, but you also get to experience different foods that are a part of the Icelandic culture. Whale watching, if you're there during whale watching season, is also a great day trip. You can go out, you can see the beautiful waterways. Maybe not the best for people who get seasick, but a really great experience. And then if you want a museum, I would say Viking Museum was our top choice. There's also the infamous Penis Museum, which for obvious reasons is not pictured here. It is a popular choice for something kind of strange and unique to Iceland and Reykjavik. So those would kind of be the museums. And then of course, there are the lagoons. So there's Sky Lagoon, which is like a newer lagoon that's built. It's really lovely. If they're staying in Reykjavik on arrival, this is a really great kind of evening sunset activity. Get you really relaxed before you go and crash for the evening after your long haul flight. And then of course the Blue Lagoon, which I don't think I have to give a lot of information on. It's probably one of the most iconic things in Iceland. So once you venture out, I would say the next most common and popular thing, the highlight, the must-see is going to be the Golden Circle. Again, you can do this self-guided, you can do this like, self-guided, self-drive, you can do it as a day trip, or you can do it as a fully guided tour. And the highlights here, the three main ones are going to be Þingvellir National Park. So that's kind of famous for both being the spot where tectonic plates meet and being the first meeting place of the Althing General Assembly in, I think it's 930. And that's like famous for being one of the longest standing parliaments in European history. And that's about 1 hour from Reykjavik. And then you have the geyser geothermal area where you can see active geysers, and then Gullfoss waterfalls, which you have this glacier water coming down the river, and it has a 2-stage drop, and it goes over 100 feet from top to bottom, and it's really large and really glorious. And there's so much water that I don't know if you can see it in the picture, but there's almost always a little waterfall, a little rainbow band from the spray. So it's really lovely. And that's the farthest from Reykjavik at about 2 hours. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of how far they are if people do them as a day trip. Other interesting places that are kind of close within this region are going to be Freidheimar, which is one of the most popular restaurants in the country. It started as a greenhouse to grow tomatoes and kind of evolved into so much more. So now you can sit in the greenhouse and have a lovely meal that's based on tomatoes, obviously. And it is a really lovely thing. You can do a little tour of the facility. They have horses, and they do like small kind of horse shows there with their Icelandic horses. So it's a really unique and very local place. And then I'm going to mention the Secret Lagoon only because I had someone ask me about it. Otherwise, I probably would have skipped over it totally. It is another lagoon. It is a more traditional styled lagoon. But I will say it's not going to be for most American travelers. It is more of a European spa experience. And if you've not had that, I will explain that that means open changing room, gender segregated, but open, with mandatory nude showering in an open shower prior to entering the lagoon. So a lot of Europeans do not like the idea of bathing suits. So this is like a weird just not comfortable for a lot of Americans. It is a nice experience, but maybe not for everybody. So it's not a luxury experience. It's a very local experience. And then here in this area, there are 3 hotels that we really like. The Geyser Hotel is, in my opinion, going to be the most convenient of these 3. So it's literally right across from the Geyser geothermal area. It has a wonderful restaurant. If you like shopping, there's a really lovely large store next door with local Icelandic like clothing and goodies. But also, I don't know if anyone watched like the Zac Efron special and saw Iceland, but there is a thing where you bake bread in the hot sand of the geothermal areas. And this is something that we can arrange privately here at the hotel with their chef. So that's kind of a unique experience that you can have there as well. I was obsessed with it, much to my colleagues' annoyance, because that was my must do on my last trip in October. So another one is going to be the Ion Adventure Hotel. That one is going to be a great choice for those looking for a more traditional styled hotel, but in a remote location. So there's little near it, so it doesn't have a lot of light pollution. So it's great for Northern Lights. As a warning, it is immediately next to a geothermal area. So be prepared for that initial whiff of sulfur. It is next to a geothermal plant. So that is scenic, but smelly. And then there's Torfos Retreat, which is a property where all of the rooms are actually individual cabins. This is great for families, anyone who wants that kind of feeling of being more secluded or want a couple days in nature. It's a really lovely high-end property. It is, I'm not gonna say it's super out of the way, but it's not as conveniently located. So then moving further along, we get to the South Coast. So this is gonna be for most people who are doing slightly longer ones, this is where they're going to want to go. Here, I'm going to touch on the hotels first and then the highlights. So 360 Hotel is a great choice if you want larger rooms, but still want a boutique property. So it's only got 13 rooms. It's run by like a really lovely husband and wife duo. They have great views onto the surrounding countryside. And this is a hotel where you can tell that the owners have really thought about what a client wants when they're staying at the hotel. There's a lot of little touches that make it a wonderful stay. Another great one is Scalacott Manor. It's kind of a new build, but a historic style hotel. The restaurant in it is top notch. So even if clients aren't staying there, if they are staying in the area, I'd highly recommend it. They also have a large stable of their own horses, so you can do horseback riding right from the hotel, which is really lovely. Another one would be Umi. It's a boutique property, again, 28 rooms. It's kind of set off to itself. And this is the only one of these 3 that doesn't have its own spa. So kind of having that little mini spa at the hotel is important. Umi might not be a good choice, but otherwise I think it's a lovely option. And Umi and Scalacott are really close to each other. And 360 is located kind of more halfway between the Golden Circle and Scalacott/Umi. And Scalacott and Umi are super close to both of the waterfalls that you see here, which makes it a great option to get up early in the morning and go see them before the crowds come. So for example, for Skogafoss, we went by one day, it was like kind of afternoon, super crowded. The next morning we got up early and went. We were probably one of 8 people there. So having that location be right next door to be able to compete with people who are driving in from Reykjavik is a great option for kind of beating the crowd. Another one is going to be the Reynisfjara Beach, aka the Black Beach. It's very popular. It's been in like lots of music videos and whatnot. So I recommend that one for sunset. A little bit better lighting than what you see with the giant shadows that I have in my photo here. The plane wreck is probably one of the most Instagrammed spots. I think that to do this, it's best to do it on an ATV tour. That way you don't have to kind of trudge across the sands to get to it. And then there's Thorsmjork, which is a gorgeous national park, but this is definitely for the more active, advanced active traveler. This is best done via book tour because you really need a specialty vehicle to explore it properly. And just for timing, the Black Beach is going to be the farthest from Reykjavik, and that's about 2.5 to 3 hours away. And then this will be a brief one. This is the Snaefellsnes Peninsula, and it's a bit off the beaten path, but an easy trek from Reykjavik, only about 2 hours to get to the peninsula and further if you go to the edge. But I think it's a really, really lovely visit. I probably have 1,000 pictures of Iceland from my trip in October, and 500 of them are from this peninsula. So the highlights here are going to be the Black Church in Budir, which you see here. There's the Kirkjufell and Kirkjufell Foss. Foss just means waterfall here. And this is like known as one of like the most beautiful mountains. And it's famous also for being in Game of Thrones. So there's just a really, as you can see, it's like a very outdoor oriented, very natural oriented, and it's just really lovely. There's only one hotel that we love here, and that's the Budir Hotel, which is next to the Budir Black Church. They are in the midst of an expansion, but luckily that's happening on the side of the hotel where the restaurant is. So it wasn't affecting the rooms when we stayed there recently. So, but it's a nice choice. This is a great option, again, for like not having to go too far to do something that's not on as many people's itineraries. So kind of how long do you need to do it? So if you're just kind of sticking to Reykjavik, I'd say 2 to 4 days. If you want to do the Golden Circle, you're looking at 3 to 5. And if you want to incorporate the South Coast with Reykjavik and the Golden Circle, you're looking at easily 5 to 7 days. So that's kind of starting in Reykjavik. You just got to add days as you go further away. And then again, as I mentioned, because of those flights, you might want to combine Iceland with a mainland European destination. And we obviously can help. These are all the ones listed here are ones that we also service. So if clients wanted to do stopovers, so they didn't have to fly Iceland Air, we could help with, a couple days stopover in any of these destinations. And then these are your 2 Iceland experts, myself, whose face you've been seeing, and also my lovely colleague, Lee, who always does all the driving when we go on these self-drive tours together. Our website's there at the bottom. And I just wanted to say thank you very much. And we do have a sample itinerary if you need it, but we're also always happy to answer questions. And then I will go ahead and say we can do questions now.